Hi, I'm Michelle Hewitt.
And I'm Amanda Lockitch, and this is Disability with Possibility.
Dancing with the flames, even when I'm down. There's a power burning loud, recharging for the...
Hey, Amanda. Who are we talking to today?
Today we are talking to Marie LeBlanc, a multimedia artist. She makes films. She makes multimedia photography series. She's just such a dynamo, and I look forward to hearing her story again and sharing it with all of you.
I dance. Dancing with the flames, even when I'm down.
Let's get this underway. Tell us about yourself.
Hi, my name is Marie LeBlanc. I am an artist with a disability and a disability artist, and I live with multiple chemical sensitivities. For those of you who haven't heard about multiple chemical sensitivities, actually in Canada, it's called environmental sensitivities, where multiple chemical sensitivity, electromagnetic hypersensitivity, or electrical sensitivities, mold illness or mold hypersensitivity all falls under environmental sensitivities. And people, including myself, can have adverse reactions to various things in the environment, such as mold, which is a really, really big thing for me because I've had kidney failure and mold. And things like electrical devices, cell towers, chemicals such as...
Like cleaning products and stuff?
Yeah, cleaning products, perfumes, building supplies, foods. And it can be irritating to completely debilitating. Some people have been wheelchair bound, and when they had the proper housing, and then after that you go to the food, water, you need that proper shelter. That's for us a medical necessity and an accessibility issue for us. And we really need that to start healing or to at least have a better quality of life. So for some people, like myself, I live in my van because that's the lifestyle I've adopted because I cannot live in modern day housing for many reasons, such as smart meters, the chemicals used, cleaning chemicals, like say in an apartment, laundry exhaust from somebody next door. It's just so hard. It can completely debilitate me. And that's just too hard for me. I also have recently been diagnosed with Lyme, which I knew I probably had since 1989. And I've been seeing a Lyme specialist for that on top of it. So that's kind of helped me quite a bit too. But avoidance has been the biggest thing. Trying to avoid things. And that's the hard thing in a van as well as living in an apartment. So if I lived in an apartment, it's really hard because I would have to ask the landlord, can you use this? Can you use that? And it's too hard to keep asking for the accommodations that aren't going to be met. So in the end, for me, it's easier to live in the van. I can do whatever I want it, not that whatever I want, but whatever I can afford to try and make it work. Like I have shut-off switches for the electrical. I never knew anything about magnetic or electrical sensitivities. Years ago, someone said, you're electrically sensitive. I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. That person was right, totally right. And when I had a concussion a few years ago, it actually made it so much worse. And when I was seeing my doctor in Alberta, my environmental doctor, we started talking about it. And I started talking about, there was one place I was staying, and every different areas of the house, I could just feel the pain, like what's going on. And I did not know there was a smart meter on the other side because I didn't even know what a smart meter was. So I said to the person, I said, do you have a smart meter? Not having a clue what a smart meter was. Well, yeah, well, where is it? Well, on the other side of your head. Are you kidding me? So we had to go through a big process to not have the smart meter. But then I had kidney failure in that house because of mold. So I had to leave anyway. So I felt really bad for the person who went all through this big episode to try and have no smart meter. And then I had gotten my hands onto a tri-field meter, which scientifically does measure my environment. So now I have a safe and sound meter, which measures radio frequency. So if I'm really being reacted by or really reacting to, say, cell towers or things in the environment, I can use those 2 meters, and it scientifically proves or shows people that, when it's above a certain level, like, this is how I'm affected. And even then, showing that scientific evidence, a lot of people don't believe me. And there's over 1 million people in Canada who are diagnosed with chemical sensitivities, and a handful of doctors.
And just so that listeners know that we're actually recording this on your cell phone, and we usually record people on a computer, a tablet, a laptop of some type. But because of your electrical sensitivities, this is the safest thing for us to do for you. And also to just let everybody know that there is a previous podcast from Shelley Petit in New Brunswick, who has multiple chemical sensitivities as well. And a lot of what you just said, avoidance, echoed very much what Shelley's telling us. But for her, quite a bit different. For her, she's isolated in her home. For you, you've done quite the opposite. Your life is on the road so that you can try and find the safest physical place for you to be in your camper van. So what's that like, living nomadically?
Well, it is a challenge. However, for me, that's the best thing I can do for my health right now. Is like, if somebody has a campfire or there's a whole bunch of cell towers, I could just pick up and move. And it is a challenge because sometimes where do I go? So I have to pick my poison for the day, because sometimes it's like cell tower, campfire, because there's nowhere else. And that is really, really hard for me because I don't know what to do sometimes. And the biggest thing is safety. Safety in terms of the environment, but physical safety. A couple nights ago, it was like somebody was outside the van, pounding all over the van. And, what do you do? Even there was another time when I was in Arizona, because my doctor sends me to live in my van in Arizona because I would probably freeze to death here in the winter. I needed some work on my van, which is normal. and these 2 guys, or especially the one, well, just come out to the middle of the desert and we'll look at your van. And I'm like, well, I'm pretty desperate, so I guess I'm going to go out here. So I went out there, and I remember the safety tips that my doctor gave me. He gave me a lot of safety tips. At this time, I'm lucky I remembered them. So he said, make sure you don't turn your back on them. So I was pretty good that way. But I remember one guy, he says something like, well, if we want you to take everything out of your van and put it under this tarp. And I'm thinking, yeah, where's this going? So then they said, well, and if we deem or find your van, so it doesn't work or you're not supposed to drive it, well, then you have to sleep in one of our vans or vehicles. And I'm like, okay, that's not going to happen. So I made sure I still joked. I still made them think I was coming back, did not turn my back, and I left and never came back. And I was scared but laughing at the same time because I got out. But there's a lot of things like that. And I meet a lot of people like me down in Arizona, because a lot of people go there and they face similar things.
Yeah, I can't imagine that. As you say, you've got that safety in 2 aspects. One is your health, and then society just isn't a safe place for people who live in their vehicles of any type, like you do. And society isn't very kind either. There aren't places where you can, safely stay in cities because there's judgment. People don't understand the choices that have, or lack of choices, I should say, that have led people to be in that position, right? So, I think that all of that adds up to something that's almost insurmountable.
Yeah. And how people have a hard time moving? Well, I'm moving every day. I'm looking for, the garbage cans is sometimes number one. The garbage cans, the cell towers, the power lines, the transformers. I never knew I had to look for any of that before. And I never knew that, for example, magnetic. I didn't know radio frequency, magnetic, electrical. I just thought, whatever. I just carried on. But for magnetic, it's distance. So I can't just right now I have a $500 piece of something called G iron because my batteries and stuff are below where I sleep. I have nowhere else to put them.
Oh,
And it affects me. So the G iron cost $500. It reduced the magnetic by quite a bit. But if I could raise my bed, it would reduce it way more. But then I can't get in.
get in because you're up against the ceiling. So we have Shelley, who is basically isolated at home. We have you, who are constantly trying to find the safest place you can be in for your health and for your security. And I'm not sure if you're aware of the woman in Toronto, because of the things that you addressed before, like mold and chemicals from landlords and so on, who ultimately chose to use medical assistance in dying Maid because she could not find a safe place to live. All people with environmental multiple chemicals, sensitivities. And as you say, there could be 1 million people in Canada that have this sensitivity. What I know that you're an advocate. What type of advocacy are you involved in, Marie?
Well, I do have to say one of the reasons that brought me to the advocacy was in the beginning when I was trying to get my needs met, I was pretty angry. It's like, here I'm going to disability. Why can't you accommodate me? People are saying, yeah, you can get me these glasses or this or whatever, but they couldn't because I needed more, like say a bed. I needed a bed that I can tolerate. I can't tell you, it took me 2 years to find one. And even then it wasn't the best bed. So then when I realized that it wasn't them, because I said, well, I started talking to the workers and they said, it's not, they can't make the decisions. It's the higher up. So then I thought, okay, well, let's see what we can do. And then I remember my mom was in the Catholic Women's League and she was on a resolution committee. And I thought, what's a resolution? Because I don't have a clue. I'm in the beginning of this and I had just left my place in Winnipeg due to urine and feces behind the wall and mold. So I left it. And so anyways, I was at another place and I was really sick, kind of couch surfing. So my mom mentions what the resolution committee was. I'm like, can you make one? So I sent her a lot of research material and they did propose it. And the day she handed in the proposal, her hip broke and you know how guilty I felt. So she was shipped from the pod to Winnipeg to the hospital. And I did go visit her. It is hard for me because all the stents, but I'm not going to not visit my mom. And she felt so bad. And I reassured her so much, like, Mom, you did so much. It never did pass to the highest level, but it did pass, I think, 1 or 2 levels. And I felt good. So that resolution, now that I knew what one was, I went to the Green Party of Manitoba and they listened to a presentation I had. And then I figured, well, I'm going to email a whole bunch of political people. And I don't know the right word, politicians, I guess, or political parties. And someone in the Green Party of Alberta answered. So Roberta Bradley, another lady, helped a lot with the resolution, and Lori Curran from the Green Party. And we presented that to the Green Party maybe in 2020, 21, I can't remember. And we were like this short of getting it passed. And it was basically for, to having like the human rights, met for people with chemical sensitivities, because we need access to the proper food we can eat, organic, if we can get it and when we get it, shelter, the proper housing, medical facilities. We need the doctors adequately trained in environmental sensitivities. At least one in each province would be good, because I've had to go across to Nova Scotia to get diagnosed and then to Alberta. And then when I was in Alberta, I had lost my provincial disability. So that was a whole new thing that I didn't know about, was things didn't get transferred over from province. And then after the Green Party, and they met with, they were very positive. And then before that, I had approached the City Access Advisory Committee in Winnipeg and Homelessness Winnipeg, a whole bunch of places, did presentations for, a right to a healthy environment at the Unitarian Church. And I think it was last year or the year before, Marg Friesen from Winnipeg, she is a very wealthy source of information. We did presentation to the City of Winnipeg about smart water meters. And because I had already had my experience, I asked, can we have like an opt-out program, no fees for us to have to opt out, and no medical letter, because it's hard to get the medical letter. We should be allowed to opt out. And then I think before that, in 2018, presented to the Accessibility for Manitobans Act, like it was under review. And St. Mark Friesen brought her into the meetings. She was amazing. We submitted our proposal, or whatever it's called. And when I looked at the final one, I didn't notice any changes or additions for people with chemical sensitivities or environmental sensitivities. But I noticed that Ontario included barriers with people facing that have environmental sensitivities. So that was really good. And then last year, Parks Accessibility Conference, I talked about the barriers we faced, hoping, because for us, that's our refuge. You know, I was asking, one thing I really was asking, which could be like anybody, was like an access pass. Like they do have an access pass to the States for people with disability, and I think age and other things. So I asked for that, and that's one thing that would really help a lot. And I did ask, you know, scent free, put signage on buildings. A lot of people with asthma, they want to camp too, but it's hard because of the fire pits. You know, maybe there's a way they could, I don't know, put certain areas,
free campsites
or
over
something
here, right? And that sort of thing, right? I think a lot of the things that you talk about are common to a lot of disabilities that people put into these categories of, because we can't measure it, we don't believe it, right? So, for example, you know, you've got people with fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome, and I know I have severe fatigue as part of my MS, and you know, people just don't believe that no, this is how I have to have it, because otherwise it triggers my fatigue, and you know, for me there's lots of sensitivities as well. And I hear in what you're saying is that sense of, you know, disbelief with people that no, because it doesn't happen to me, it can't possibly be happening to somebody else. So, you know, I think that the more advocacy you do, and the more talking, and I'm leading into your artwork here, because Amanda's putting a finger in the air. So
I'd like to leap before we get to the art. I just wanted to, you bring up in one of your documentaries, which kind of segues into the art, but you bring up the idea that MCS is not registered within the medical book. So it's not coded as something that somebody can bill for example. I know you've done a lot of work around that. Have you seen any movement in changes to that? Doctors are now acknowledging that there is something called multiple chemical sensitivity.
Some doctors will acknowledge. Some doctors say they aren't even going to go there. They acknowledge it, but they said they're not going to go there because it's, I don't know the right word. I know that it would be nice if we had like a diagnosis code for each province, because there was a petition put out October 2020, petition E2729, that, is it Paul Manning? Is that his name? That he stood behind it. And we had 500 names. And some of the information they mentioned was the World Health Organization deals with the International Classification of Diseases Code. And each province would be dealing with the designation code, or whatever you call it, you know, that they put under. So for me, when I go to a doctor, it's not going to be chemical sensitivities. It's going to be headache, high blood pressure, bladder, you know. But all of them are, for me, the chemical sensitivities.
yeah, so it's a list of the separate things that you're having at that time, but it's not the sum of all of them, which is multiple chemical sensitivities, right? It's the, you know, it goes back to that. It's like things with people with chronic fatigue and so on. It's the, you know, lack of ability to get out of bed, or those sorts of things.
So I was bedridden for a while. And now that I'm out of, you know, all this stuff, I can function better. So I have arthritis, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, the Lyme, the mold illness, whatever I'm reacting to that day. Lord knows what's going to happen to me that day, but I still have to keep on functioning because it's just me in the world, in my van, and I can't really show too much vulnerability because I'm female. And I just have to keep on doing my thing. Like a lot of people, when I talk to them, this goes back to, I guess, how I'm treated living in a van. I know it's acceptable in a lot of cases, when you're getting older, they accept it. But for me, when I start talking about chemical sensitivities, they're really interested in the information I give out. And then sometimes when I say I live in a van, they're gone. It's like it depends where I'm at. Arizona, it's a different there. A lot of people and I don't want to rule or say certain places, but a lot of people here, when I've been in Alberta, it was very, very hard to start accepting that, wow, I'm way less than them because I live in my van. Like, that's not accepting it, but you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't faze me anymore. It's like, okay, whatever. I know that I feel much better when I'm living in my van. So a lot of people don't accept it.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's our society and the judgments that we bring on people without actually understanding who they are and how they live. I mean, I just think that I think that it takes a lot of bravery and to be able to say, for the sake of my health, and I'm going to, take myself on the road because it's the healthiest place for me to be, even if it's not the safest in terms of personal security as a woman and all the things we go through and the judgments that come along with that and everything. So I say kudos to you for actually being able to take control of yourself in that way. And so then I'm going to lead into some of the artwork that did take place in Arizona because you had to travel there. So I know Amanda wants to talk about your processes and things like that a lot, and I'm going to leave all of that to her. But I'm just going to open with tell us about Overdressed, because it's an incredible exhibition.
Well, I had this idea and I kept imagining it, and there's this dress. I've got to do everything in this dress. I didn't really understand why. I just had to. So I started thinking Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Access to air, food, water, shelter. Let's try this. So then I started bringing out my solar cooker and all the things that I had to do, wearing this evening gown in the middle of the desert. I remember one time I was doing the photo shoot. Somebody with their drone came by and they were like peeking out with their drone. And I'm like, so I kind of quit at that point because I didn't know why they just kept doing this. But I pretty much where I went, like mostly in the desert, I started doing those photos. And it just made me feel like I was doing something, I'm accomplishing something, even though I didn't know what at that point. And then I did get into a mentorship program where Yvette Signorini, she's through Arts and Accessibility Network as well. She helped me out tremendously. Like, that's how we got the photos we did. I think we got 77 because I had thousands. and my brain was all over the place, like it's not normally, right? It is. But it was way worse. And since I've had the Lyme, I can sort of focus better than I could then. But yeah, so I started doing that and wore the boots. And the dress kind of symbolizes, like, you go out to a special event and there's a lot of things you have to do for this special event. So that dress kind of symbolizes that special event. So when I'm doing my laundry, my special event of laundry with the plunger, I'm pretty tired after that special event. Just like someone else who's gone to their special event, they're tired the next day. It takes a lot of energy to do that laundry like that, or even find a place or find water and then go somewhere and try and do laundry. It's much easier in the desert. So that's kind of where I went with that. And it turned out really, really good. I felt really glad that I did that art show.
I think that's really neat, that sense of the dress symbolizing, all of these special events in life that are for other people are pretty ordinary events, right? Doing the laundry, but for many disabled people in many different ways, right? doing the laundry can be an exhausting event. I just think it's such a neat idea, and we will be putting links in the show blurb and everything. I strongly advise people go check these photos out and really look at them and think about what you're seeing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was just going to also bring up another one of your films, the MCSEI awareness movie, which was incredibly powerful when you're hearing the stories and you're listening to people say, I don't have the life I used to have, but I'm still here and I'd still like to be here and I'd still like to live with purpose and do the things. I just can't do the things I used to do. That one, I can't remember his name, but that one guy, he was, brought me to tears. So I have two questions. One is a lot of your art and a lot of your advocacy go together, and you seem to also do sort of multimedia. So you've got this kind of multiple things going on in a way that brings a lot of pieces together. And I don't know if there's a question in there. I just think it's really cool. Also, I know you've got some stuff upcoming that you don't want to talk about yet, but do you have anything upcoming that you would like to share with us?
Yes. Okay. So, there is, I was interviewed by someone from Manitoba who came to meet me from Canadians for Safe Technology for a possible documentary. So it's called Evicted by Wireless. And they interviewed me for that. So that's my part in it. And I'm hoping that comes out in the future. They're going to have a GoFundMe and they're going to raise money. They're looking for help for a website. And I am pretty excited for this. And then there is like under wraps working on like a possible educational interactive traveling art exhibition that I'm hoping will go across Canada and the world. But that could take 5 or 10 years. We're just in the process of grant writing and talking with Arts and Accessibility Network for ideas. Like Janelle has been amazing through Arts and Accessibility Network. I can't even tell you. And then last thing is I submitted some photography into a group photography show, and it's people who have disabilities, or in that section, who have disabilities and who are doing disability art. So I'm hoping I get in. That would be Flash Fest for next year. And I put some very, very cool images in there. That's all I can say. I'll send them to you guys when it happens. And my other thing I normally do is during the awareness month, like the Manitoba legislature in Winnipeg for the last 3 years, at least one day during Chemical Sensitivities Awareness Month, they lit the top part yellow. And they're not sure if they're continuing any of that for anybody anymore, but we'll find out next year. And the high level bridge in Edmonton, I've done it for 5 years, where they lit the bridge green and yellow one day during Chemical Sensitivities Awareness Month. So it feels good to get that done. The province that I left and the province that I went to, and hopefully maybe at some point I could get more, but I only have so much energy. Well, when you were asking me about the short film, so the first one, Paul, one laying in his bed, he's from Manitoba. And I couldn't go there. I had met him before. So I asked him if he would send me the video. So he recorded, I sent him a list of questions that he videoed and sent it to me. And then on my first trip on the way south to Arizona, I was meeting other people. I'm like, well, I'm just going to video. I don't have a clue what I'm going to do, but I'm going to video. So those people were people I met along my journey. And I can't tell you how many people I've met. And it's just really sad when I hear, what are they going to do in the future? There's no housing for us. There's no old folks' homes or whatever the proper name is for that. I don't even know, what am I going to do? What if something happens to me and I go into the hospital or go somewhere else, and there's all the scents? Well, that just makes me worse. So what are my chances of getting better? And that's a big thing. And that short film has played at UCLA during a conference that they had last year. It was screened at the Oral Histories of Environmental Illness Symposium at UCLA. And it's won a few awards. And it was also screened at the Canadian Museum for Human Rights during an art show called Strength.
I think one of the things that I'm sensing, obviously you're held back by where you can be because of multiple chemical sensitivities, but you manage to create this incredible community wherever you go with the people you meet and that you talk to. So I find that fascinating that that even with the disabilities manifest in many different ways, and yours would be one that would want you to stay away. I have a friend who bought me a mask during COVID because I'm immune compromised, and it said it's too peoply out there with the Grinch on it and everything, because I don't do people, right? People are full of germs and all that sort of thing. But you have, as you keep talking about these people that you meet, and that I find that incredible and just like, yeah, so well done, right? You should be so proud of it, of yourself and what you achieve.
I also just love the process of, I'm not sure what this is going to be. I'm not sure if it's ultimately going to be anything, but why don't I take these photos? Why don't I capture this video? And then it turns into, an award-winning documentary, which is just lovely, because so many artists, start with a plan, right? I really love that about your work.
Thank you.
Again, there wasn't a question in there. Just praise.
Well, when I there was a publisher who took me on, and then I couldn't understand the rules. I actually, it didn't happen because I am terrible at understanding rules. At least this way, when I'm not rules, that's the wrong word, but guidelines, I don't understand them. But I remember when I was working, like back when I was working, the only way I could do a project was as if I had to do it the way I could do it. I couldn't understand the rules. So that's the hardest thing for me. I remember one time I tried to work at a zip line. Probably a couple things you need to do for someone's safety, right? So I go there, and they really liked me. They were really nice, and they were painting. Well, and someone came with scent. Whew. At that point, like, I would really lose my memory and stuff, and I couldn't remember the two little rules to hook someone up so they could go on the zip line. So I had to fire myself, and I wasn't there for very long because I figured their safety, they aren't going to make it if I'm the one that's going to, hook them up or whatever. So one thing for me was the memory was a really, really hard. When I got hit with fragrances and things that were bothering me, that was one of the things, was memory, concentration, headaches, brain fog, even like my bladder. At one point, they were going to remove my bladder. And I thought, no, I'm thinking if I can get out of the mold, the pesticides, maybe I can make it, keep it. I've had like over 20 surgeries for things. So that worked for me. I still have bladder issues, especially when I'm exposed to different things and things I bring into my van. I go to the store, I bring something in, and because I've had COVID, I don't smell everything. I can't. So then I'm putting myself at risk, but I don't know what to do. I mean, I have to live too. And people, they see me in a store, someone who says, well, I thought you couldn't come in the store. I'm thinking, well, I don't have anybody else to go for me. I remember before COVID, I was in Alberta and in the States. I would stand outside the store and beg people to go in for me and offer. Didn't really have any money because the first year I wasn't on like a provincial disability. I would beg them. And they, of course, they're thinking it's in my head. And after a while, it's like, I don't care. I just need my stuff. And then when COVID came along, you couldn't even do that. So it was really hard. Then when somebody who had Lyme told me about this Lyme doctor, I had just finished seeing a doctor for a bunch of, IVs and all the things that I can do. And I didn't really want to go. And they said, well, we'll pay if you just drive there. So I drove there, and the guy's like, yeah, you have Lyme. Totally alternative. But I had gone a few times, and now I can enter more buildings. But I can't say I'm not entering them without reactions. I'm still getting them, but not hitting me as quick, as hard, as fast, if that makes sense, but it's still hitting me. So at least I can go in and I might be able to remember 2 things on my list. So now I make a little game out of it, and it's like, okay, I'll give myself 3 things. Am I going to remember those? And sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And I have a big handful of stuff. And I'm like, oh, I didn't come in for this, So I either have to put it down or think, why do I need this? Yeah. It's really hard because it affects the memory. It affects, well, then my ability to make a decision when I'm in there. So the scents are just really affecting everything, and my breathing and my eyesight. And I'm like, okay, I just got to go to the van. Sometimes I'll just put it down. I'll say, I'll come back later and make my decision on this because really I don't need some of the stuff, but it really makes, or I'll start cracking jokes. And that's what it would do. It either I'd crack jokes or I used to start slurring, but a lot of that's gotten better with the Lyme and the avoidance. The avoidance for me was the biggest thing. It is hard to avoid a lot of things because I'm going from place to place, but at least I have my van.
Yeah, it must be so hard to go into a place and, feel triggered and not know, like, is it a scent? Is it like a smart meter or something? Or is it, because like now, free Wi-Fi is everywhere, right? So it's like networks of things that are all around us. And so you must be, continually trying to, like, you lift one layer off the onion and you dig down into another layer, but all you wanted to do was go buy a loaf of bread, right? And,
Yeah, and the abdominal pain, I can't even tell you the pain abdominally, and my blood pressure. So I bought a blood pressure monitor. I thought, well, let's just see. Let's just check this out, because I went to the doctor's office. Your blood pressure's high. I said, that's because I'm in here. Oh, white coats. No, it's not. I don't think it's that. I said, it's because it's scented in here. And so anyways, I did a 2-week journal. I even did a 2-week journal, which included somewhere where I was by this cell tower and I didn't know it, but I started getting hypothermia. And I'm like, okay, there's something electrical. I know the semis will do that. If I'm parked that close, what is it? I go around the corner. I knew it, there's a cell tower. So I'll get hypothermia. So I used my blood pressure monitor, did 2 weeks, and I showed it to my doctor, and she was like, hey, I don't need to go on the meds, but I brought the meds in case, say, I'm in a place for a long period of time, but I'm not.
And you can't avoid. Yeah, and you can't avoid it.
No, and I have lots of things like magnesium really helps, sometimes vitamin C, but with my bladder condition, vitamin C isn't necessarily my friend. So there's a lot of different things I do. I'll do the IVs. I've done, reflex. I'm a reflexologist, so I can do reflexology on myself. I've bartered for acupuncture. I mean, I used to, back in the day, that used to be my bartering tool because I couldn't afford anything. So I've done a little bit of bartering where if I stayed on someone's land, that, okay, you want me to do this outside, like cut, pull weeds or whatever, but I can only do it for so long because of the pain level, but it's better than being inside. So sometimes I've planned to help someone plant their garden, and I thought, so I'm thinking of it, okay, this isn't my only way I can think of this is going to gain me skills, and I'm outside and maybe I'm going to get better. But then, there's some days I just can't do it. It's too hard.
And the energy that it takes to find those places and have those conversations, right? It's massive.
It's usually when the van breaks down. That's when I said people, so that, oh, do you need help on the road? Oh, well, you can stay at our place. One time it was the tow truck guy. Well, you can stay at me and my wife's place. That was like the only good thing about a broken down van was, the people that I met.
It sounds like you've met much more you've come out on the plus side with the people that you've met more often than the negative, and that's wonderful, right? That there's people out there like that. So here we are at the end of October. When do you head off to Arizona then? When does the
early November, and hoping it doesn't get to minus 23 like last year before I left. It was so cold. Before I never had any heat in my van. So I would have like those hand warmers. So at minus 18 with hand warmers and a hot water bottle, if I could find hot water, was not fun. So now I have the diesel heater. It took me years to figure out how do I do this? So I did that. I don't get the smell of diesel. I didn't know what else to do because I've got to live. And last year it was minus 23. So I had like the big, those silver things that go from dryers. What do they call the dryer vent?
Oh, yeah.
Had it attached going to my bed. And I was just warm there, but everything froze. everything froze, everything else, but at least I had heat going to the fan. So it's pretty hard in the cold. So yeah, I'm going down. And I have met people along the way. People tell me about other people that along the way, so I can stay outside people's places that's safe. Safe, I mean, sometimes there's the wires, but I don't know what to do because I don't know where to stay. So I have met a lot of people.
Security safe as opposed to health safe.
Yeah.
Or as health safe as it can be. Right.
Like, what do I choose? Which do I choose, you know?
Yeah, I usually end with sort of a silly question, but today I just want to ask if there's anything else. You know, I know you put a few memory joggers around of things that you might have wanted to talk about. Was there anything that we didn't get to that you really want to talk about?
Yeah, one thing was we were talking about provinces before, like I went from one province to another province. So when I was seeking the medical care and waiting, you know, for the approval for the next doctor, and my van was broken down, I had lost my disability from Manitoba. So I ended up staying in Alberta because I didn't know what to do. If I went back to Manitoba, I wouldn't be able to come back, wouldn't be able to afford it. So I stayed on the streets of mostly Edmonton, gutting my van because I couldn't handle it. It was a nice road trek. I could not handle it. So I gutted the whole thing, took it all out. I had begged for help from people. And so then I had contacted different offices, but they weren't allowed to help me or help me fill out the forms. Finally, someone did, but I had to prove I lived there. I have no ID here. I mean, and I did have help from lots of people. I've got to thank so many people that I had help to make this work. And it was so hard to prove I lived there because my van was still Manitoba, you know, and I was just like a mess. And I had mold exposure and the kidney failure in that time. So I had finally got help to apply, but because I had the kidney failure, the doctor, that was the final decision. Like, you're going to the States, basically is what I had to do. So I had not had my disability. I was on CPP disability. So that with 40% or more taken off, you know, for exchange rate, there wasn't much to live on. So I had gotten a text or an email saying to come back to Alberta, and I think I could qualify for disability. But I thought, no, it's minus whatever. I don't have heat. I'll wait till I come back. But COVID hit. So with COVID, coming back to Canada, I had like 3 COVID plans. None of them worked. So I actually got denied entrance into Canada, went to a local campground south of the border and tweeted something. And so someone found me a place I could stay at in Saskatchewan. But when I got denied entrance into Canada, so when I went back, I got searched from the U.S. people because why did you get denied? Well, I had 3 COVID plans, but apparently you had to have someone around. And for me, quarantine, I thought meant no one. So I had 3 plans of good quarantine. So anyways, I went to Saskatchewan and then I came back to Alberta, and it took me the rest of the summer to get the disability. And then when I had to go back because I wasn't there the 6 months, I lost it again. I lost the Alberta one. But they gave it back to me pretty quickly, like within that month. So I didn't really lose. But it's been really hard. It's hard because it would be nice if disability was transferred. I was going for medical reasons. Then I had to start all over, you know, with ID, everything. It was so hard. But I do have to say I had a lot of help.
Yeah, we hear this a lot about, you know, the difficulty of the portability of you know, services that you've picked up. Sometimes it's not even province to province. It can be health authority to health authority, right? And, you know, here where we are in BC, you get a certain care provision from your health authority, you move into another one and you lose it all, and you have to apply again. And that's, you know, even in the same province. So, you know, somehow it all comes down to that not quite trusting people or not having a system that quite understands that we're a big country and that people need to move around for very many different reasons, all of which are totally valid. So Marie, I really have to thank you for your time, your openness, the way you live your life, and I know the laughter can often hide a multitude of things that are going on in the background, but the joy that you bring, the way you open your life through your exhibitions. I really appreciate everything you do, and hearing that, the complexity of your life. Thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for doing everything that you're doing to help all of us. Your work is amazing. Thank you. Oh, I have one more thing. I had volunteered to be like a citizen journalist, so that kind of thing at one point. And I had just finished a Canary in the Coal Mine exhibition in Winnipeg where I attended via iPad. And then I thought, I'm going to be losing where I live and whatever. There's no access to anything. So I couldn't be in this bubble. This one place let me this big bubble that a person can go into. So my late friend Manfred, he liked doing that kind of stuff because I couldn't be in the bubble. So we went to the legislature and I took pictures. He's trying to get in, because we can't get in. He's in this big bubble. He couldn't get into the legislature. I can't say the right word.
We know what you mean.
Yeah, the legislative building. Anyways, so it truly did show that there was no access for us.
Absolutely, right? Our bubbles aren't portable, right? It's that is such a great image for isolation and disability and lack of access. That is a truly, I'm sure.
I could send you a picture.
Apps, please do. I'm sure I will
do.
steal that image multiple times as that idea multiple times to use for things. Thank you so much, Marie.
You're welcome. Thanks, you.
Marie.
Amanda, what an incredible woman. First of all, an incredibly talented artist. So interesting for us both to dig deep into her art forms and how she makes those happen.
Yeah, and it's also just, the realization that even just recording the podcast on her cell phone, the drain that must have taken from her, and doing that on a cell phone as opposed to a laptop, because that would have been even worse. You really start to think about the experiences that people are going through.
Oh, and, not being able to go into a grocery store because of all the difficult sensitivities around her, and making the choice to live in a van and then not being able to find somewhere, safe to live. The theme of housing, as we've been through this podcast, the theme of housing has been, from the homelessness that people have experienced with the traumatic brain injuries, from the multiple chemical sensitivities, from Liz who wanted to move out of her home and can't get a care package that will support her to do that. It's been a sub-theme to what we've been doing.
Yeah, I think there have been a number of themes that have run through the arc of this season, but we are moving on to who next?
Next, we get to talk to Luca Patuelli, Lazy Legs Luca, somebody who we both know quite well and have a large amount of affection for.
And I dance, dancing with the flames.
Disability with Possibility is made possible by many, many people. However, a few key people that we would like to thank are Christina Sheldon for her fabulous theme song, producer Dave Shumka with Kelly and Kelly, and all the funders and partners who help us do what we do.